Asked whether he'd attend the funeral of the National Guard member killed in a D.C. attack, Trump didn't offer condolences, didn't acknowledge the family, didn't commit to showing up. He immediately pivoted to bragging about how popular he is in West Virginia, which is, again, more Trump, right? This is how he is. It's one speed. And if you're seemingly winning on your agenda, then that's fine by the independents that also like certain parts of your agenda. But if you're a floozer and you're doing this, then people are going to be like, what the hell are you doing? Anyway, all right, let's get into it. So the two National Guards members, one was a woman, the other one was a man, were shot a couple days ago in Washington, D.C., near the White House by an Afghan national who was, as we found out yesterday, a member of a CIA death squad in Afghanistan, and was properly vetted on numerous occasions, and came to the United States of America in 2021 with a bunch of other collaborators of the American occupation in Afghanistan. So, one of the two members of the National Guard that got shot succumbed to her wounds yesterday, and Donald Trump announced the death of the National Guardsman Sarah Beckstrom like this.
And the horror of our entire nation at the terrorist attack yesterday in our nation's capital, in which a savage monster gunned down two service members in the West Virginia National Guard who were deployed as part of the D.C. task force, which has done such an incredible job. I mean, until yesterday, we literally had no incidents for many months. It was the safest place imaginable, and this is a different kind of crime. This is a really bad crime. Millions of Americans are praying for those heroes and their families, and I must unfortunately tell you that just seconds before I went on, right now, I heard that Sarah Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young.
Dude, why is Trump also getting that same audio bug that CNN has? What the f*** is going on?
Magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. Her parents are with her. It's just happened. She was savagely attacked. She's dead. She's not with us. Incredible person. Outstanding in every single way, in every department. Just horrible. As you know, the other young man is fighting for his life. He's in very bad shape. He's fighting for his life, and hopefully we'll get better news with respect to him.
Some liberals thought Trump was behind this attack to boost his support. Yeah, it's just not going to work, though. I don't think this is going to have a rallying around the flag effect. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just not. And yeah, he's definitely cooked. No matter what he does, and I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to work through the motions in an instance like this in the way that like a competent governor would. Right? He's Trump, so of course he's going to do Trump shit. And the entire reason why people are upset at him is because he's been doing too much Trump shit. He's been molesting the money too much, for example. Right? So Trump only has one speed, which is do more Trump shit. So people are going to get mad. Some are going to get mad at him for, aggressively stamping out like visas and things of that nature. Other people are going to continue getting mad at him because he's not doing anything to solve the affordability crisis that he won an election on promising to solve. And things are only going to get worse.
And the monster that did this is also in serious condition. But we won't even talk about him. As you may know, DHS has confirmed that the suspect is an Afghan national flown here by the previous administration, who was such a bad administration.
Yeah. It's his disapproval is even worse, I think, than Brandon's. Biden in November 2021, his approval was 42%. His disapproval was 55%. Biden in November 2024, his approval was 37%. His disapproval was 58%. New Gallup poll on how Americans rate Trump's performance as president is now lower than that. 60% disapproval, 36% approval. 36% was Biden's all-time worst approval in Gallup. His disapproval was still 2 points better, and that came in July 24th, right after he tanked the debate and was being pushed out of the race. Trump is now less popular than Brandon was at his lowest. As in, when Americans, after experiencing 1.5 years of negative real wage growth, finally came to the fucking conclusion that Biden's brain was leaking out of his ears, and they were like, enough is enough. What the fuck are we doing here? That level of disapproval, and Trump is worse than that. This is not a coalition that can stand. Okay? This is not a coalition that can stand. It's so over. Trump sees that. He knows that. No matter how many sycophantic losers are surrounding him, constantly telling him shit is actually sweet, Mr. President. People love you. This is, George W. Bush leaving office numbers with independents and Democrats. Okay? And the Republican voters are the only thing that is keeping his approval rating at the level that it's at. Okay? Do you approve or disapprove of the way that Donald Trump is handling his job as president? We have to realize that some of these people are basically in a cult. Okay? Many of these people are basically in a cult where they're just like, nope. It's just no matter what he does, I still love him. This is reminiscent of the last Trump tenure. Okay? The last Trump term, he barely got below 80%. He barely got below 90%. And I don't think ever got below 80% in terms of approval from the Republicans. Okay? But fear not, because this doesn't actually mean that he has a tremendous amount of approval overall. Okay? Because self-identifying Republicans saying that Donald Trump is great doesn't necessarily mean anything when there's not enough self-identifying Republicans out there. Okay? They make up a tiny fraction of American society. But on the independent side, he's at 25%. And on the Democrat side, obviously, he's at 3%. Okay? How many dislike it because he's not awful enough? A very, very small number. That's an irrelevant number of people. Yeah. Asked whether he'd attend the funeral of the National Guard member killed in a DC attack, Trump didn't offer condolences, didn't acknowledge the family, didn't commit to showing up. He immediately pivoted to bragging about how popular he is in West Virginia, which is, again, more Trump, right? More Trump. This is how he is. It's one speed. And if you're seemingly winning on your agenda, then that's fine by the independents that also like certain parts of your agenda. But if you're a loser and you're doing this, then people are going to be like, what the hell are you doing?
Stages obviously here, but do you plan to attend Sarah's funeral?
I haven't thought about it yet, but it certainly is something I could conceive of. I love West Virginia. You know, I wonder.
I mean, this guy didn't even talk about Charlie Kirk, right? He didn't even give a shit about Charlie Kirk enough. So much so that they couldn't even come up with like a competent singular message on the Charlie Kirk stuff, right? It's very, very difficult for this man to offer condolences, like sincere condolences to some random National Guards member that he doesn't know about, doesn't give a shit about at all. He knew Charlie Kirk personally. He was homies with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk did a lot for him, and he still was like, oh, the ballroom.
West Virginia by one of the biggest margins of any president anywhere. And it's, you know, these are great people. I love the people of West Virginia. I love the people of our country. But I haven't given it any thought, but it sounds like something I could do, yeah. It's very raw.
Anyway, this is actually kind of crazy given how he was expected to blow this wide open and making it a talking point, but it goes to show you he probably doesn't know / remember it happened, bro. This is proof he's lost it. Yeah, was the ballroom his now watch this drive Bush moment? Kind of. Just as though Bush did not give a shit about the war on terror. And that's why he said, now watch this drive, cared more about golf, right? And yes, these clips that you're sending me, I already watched yesterday. I talked about this extensively yesterday. The background of the shooter, the background of the Afghan shooter, and how similar that was to another shooting that took place earlier this year by Jamal Wali, another Afghan mercenary brought to the U.S. after Kabul fell, who shot 2 cops in Virginia, in Fairfax, Virginia. Listen to the incredible rant he delivers before he snaps, then watch how smoothly he draws and racks his weapon. Obviously a professional killer at his wit's end. Yeah, he literally says, I should have joined the Taliban. That's what he literally said in the video. Incredibly sad and disturbing video depicting the violent end of an Afghan man who made the mistake of working for the special forces in the CIA. I should have served with the Taliban, he says, seconds before he draws on the cop. Yeah. But I don't get it. I thought the trans issue was going to be a real winner. I thought the trans issue was going to be a real mover and shaker. It's just so shocking to me because Trump keeps saying everybody's transgender, and he banned transgender athletes from participating in NCAA competitions, and yet people are still very upset at the way things are going. What is it? I thought it was actually undocumented migrants. I thought it was actually the migrants that were the problem here. I thought it was the trans people that were the problem here. What the happened? It turns out all of the mass apprehension of migrants is actually not solving any of the issues that many Americans were facing in terms of affordability, and neither did the trans thing. But that was the focus, right? You got your culture war. You won the culture war, right? You won the election. It turns out most people, by and large, don't give a about any of this stuff. They, as a matter of fact, the ones that do care about this stuff care about it in the opposite direction. The people that do care about this go, why are you harming trans people? The people that do care about this go, why are you black bagging and kidnapping my goddamn neighbors? And this is something that I will continue stressing over and over again. If you hear from anyone, whether they present themselves as centrist, whether they present themselves as apolitical, right-wing or far-right, if they spend any amount of time telling you that the culture war shit is the most relevant and most important thing that you have to focus on, you must understand that those people are unserious, and at best, they're delusional and they're stupid, and they've been duped themselves and they're trying to dupe you in the same way. Or at worst, they are cynical, okay? They are cynically advancing the culture war narrative because there is no real solution to the actual pain points, the actual pressure points that harm you, whether it be the affordability of healthcare, whether it be the affordability of housing, or whether it be the affordability of higher education, or better job prospects and better wages and better benefits. Those are the things that people actually care about, okay? That's it. That is what politics is supposed to be about. And yet there is this uniparty consensus on these issues. At most, you get marginal incremental change in the positive direction from the Democrats, and they never actually fulfill those promises anyway, right? They'll tell you, oh, no, we're going to fix this stuff. And slowly but surely, people come to those conclusions. You've already been there because you're in this community, right? And a lot of people for years and years yelled at myself and yelled at you guys for saying this stuff is not supposed to be a part of the negotiation. Okay? It's not. The real issues that matter is not about stopping transgender athletes from participating in collegiate athletics. That is ridiculous. And any amount of time that you're spending on this issue is a breath that you're wasting. Okay? This is something that I kept repeating over and over again. And I'm glad that, I'm not glad necessarily because I'm glad that people are finally coming to that conclusion. But I'm not happy about what it took for people to come to that conclusion, to arrive at that conclusion. Okay? I fear this won't matter. Americans have short memories. If Trump makes Republican lives better, they'll forget everything, the plan, and say it's past of the plan. I don't even know what you're trying to say there, but yes, you're right. Americans do have short memories, which is why I will continue to reiterate this position over and over again. Most people genuinely don't care one way or another. Exactly. But there is also an opportunity there, okay? A lack of care on these sorts of issues means that these sorts of issues are not supposed to be the forefront of the American political conversation. This doesn't mean that we just write off trans people in the way that the Democrats are presenting, right? That's ridiculous. Of course you're not supposed to write trans people off. That's insane. And as a matter of fact, it was a failure anyway, because Kamala Harris did write off trans people in the last election cycle. She didn't talk about trans people at all, and yet she was still bullied mercilessly for one response she gave to a pre-existing government policy about offering medical care to trans prisoners, right? Like, that was something that the Trump administration did as well, but it doesn't matter. When they do it, nobody gives a This was always my position. It's not that we write off trans people, or even worse than writing off trans people, it's not that we actually take an anti-trans stance or whatever. It's that we work to build as large of a coalition of support as possible by pushing for policies and having a class-first politics so that we can bring as many people on board as possible. You want to have racists vote for you because there's a lot of racist people in this country, but you don't get racists to vote for you by becoming racist. You get them to vote for you because racists need housing too. Racists need healthcare too. And you say, I'm going to give you housing, I'm going to give you healthcare, but you can't complain that black people are also getting it. Okay? You can't complain that trans people are also getting it. That's not going to happen. And that is a decent calculation that many Americans will get on board with. That's it. Is it the noise gate? Is so weird. Like, he doesn't say anything for 2 seconds and didn't finish his thoughts. What are you talking about? I am finishing my thoughts. Anyway, yeah, this is not a radical position. This is the correct position. Okay? And the reality of the matter is the more you focus on addressing the material inequities, the more people will come on board with your movement. And the more they come on board with your movement, the more open-minded they are towards other members in your movement or other values that you have. There are so many people whose minds I've been able to change because they came in here and at first they were probably hyper-focused on this dumb, nonsensical culture war bullshit. And I was like, that's not what's actually harming you, okay? The thing that I said on Theo Vaughn is, I think, one of the most salient ways of addressing this issue. A transgender person is not your landlord that's raising your rent. A Guatemalan migrant is not your boss that's saying, no, you actually have to come into work when, you're sick. Those are the real problems. But if you ask the Republicans, they turn around and say, no, it's the transgenders and the Guatemalans that are actually oppressing you. That's not the case. It's the Democrats, and they're hyper-focused on the transgenders and the Guatemalans. That's the reason for your oppression. That's not the case at all. Okay? You have to offer people things to win elections. You have to offer the largest chunk of the electorate improvements on their material circumstances to bring them on board with your movement. Okay? That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And luckily, in the post-Zoran election victory, I can just point to him because he is proof that everyone basically saw, right? He's proof in action of this theory. That this kind of campaigning, this kind of policy making is a mechanism for success. So if you want to defend trans people, if you're a Democrat, if you're a liberal, and you're like, I don't really understand this socialism stuff. I don't really like Hasan. I've heard he's class first, and I think he's transphobic or whatever. Or I don't really like Hasan because he's a socialist, and we all know how socialists are white supremacists of a different order or whatever the. Remember, my advocacy still revolves around protecting marginalized communities. But the best possible way that you can protect marginalized communities is if you win elections and you are dominant in American politics. Okay, at least in the electoral structure that currently exists within the two-party duopoly that currently exists. So one of the two major parties that is supposed to engage in a defensive posture against marginalized communities and actually improve their civil liberties and their circumstances has to win elections so that the right flank doesn't come in and ruin their lives even further. And if you actually want to win those elections, you unironically need to offer everybody something, okay? And you need to make sure that you are earnestly communicating that you are going to improve people's lives. You are going to improve people's lives unconditionally, because no one's life gets improved when trans people are barred from competition at the NCAA. That's not improving anybody's life, right? Just as no one's life gets improved when they fire off a clip about their least favorite political commentator on Twitch, your life is not improving. You just get a moment of satisfaction and maybe some some props from this like community that you're participating in, but you didn't actually improve your life in any meaningful capacity. Okay? We have a finite amount of time on this planet. You should probably use it in a more productive manner to try to push towards goals that improve everyone's material circumstances. How is this any different than Ezra Klein's bad take? Great question. Ezra Klein actually thinks the best possible way is through incremental gains on the material improvements while simultaneously taking a right-wing, oftentimes reactionary position on social issues. I'm not saying you should take a reactionary position on social issues. I'm saying that social issues should not even be a point of contention in your campaigning. It should not even be brought up. Any moment that you're engaging in the culture war is a moment that you're most likely going to lose, because culture war issues are created specifically by Republicans and focus tested endlessly in an effort to be as appealing as possible to the broadest base of support. The transgender bathroom bill was an abject failure for the Republicans in North Carolina. There was tremendous pushback. Donald Trump was pro-trans at the time in 2016 when he first ran for president. And he even said North Carolina is up. So what did these groups do? They went back to the drawing board and figured out that the best possible way to engage in the anti-trans conversation was not by saying, oh, they can't go and piss in the bathroom for their actual gender, right? We need to figure out a new way to be anti-trans. And the new way that they figured out was, and they focus tested this endlessly, right? The new way was sports and children. Americans believe that sports is probably the last bastion of meritocracy, okay? Where people who are truly and uniquely gifted end up winning. And if you tie trans identity to something that most people don't understand but don't necessarily care about, right? If you tie trans identity to like a sinister way of faking being trans because you want to win the high school swim meet, all of a sudden Americans were actually 80-20 on the opposite side, where they were like, yeah, that is true. Trans people are ruining the meritocracy in sports. I hate that. I don't fully understand what they're doing, but now I feel like they're sinister. And the other side of it is, of course, protecting children. They very cynically claim that trans people or trans existence was somehow harmful to children. It was a disgusting thing made up mostly by pedophiles when they kept saying this like weird group of people that you don't fully understand that breaks the gender binary in the way that you were taught is actually also harmful to children, and it bricked a lot of people's brains. It was a successful form of counter messaging against trans existence. That doesn't mean that you should lean into that. That means you should counter message against that all the time as though you are campaigning year round in the same way that Republicans do. But having said that, that shouldn't be the main fixture of your campaigning, because at the end of the day, trans people are a tiny, minuscule percentage of the American public. Okay? If your campaigning revolves around any issue that only pertains to 1% of the American public, that's not the most effective campaign strategy. Okay? It's not. This doesn't mean cast aside transgender issues or cast aside transgender people in the way that Ezra Klein is suggesting, right? It just simply means bring everyone on board through a real improvement in their material circumstances. And that's precisely what Zoran did. There was never a moment where Zoran was anti-trans. He never actually conceded on that point at all, but that never actually got brought up at all. Why did that never get brought up? Because his campaign was centered around affordability. Black and brown people know that if white men didn't want to do this, it would not be a conversation. The message of patriarchy, the nuclear family, etc., and it comes out gross. Ultimately, you don't have to do any concessions on this stuff at all, especially if you're offering people something. Democrats offer people nothing, and then every now and then, at least from an aesthetic perspective, will just yell at you and say, oh, you're being not woke. They look smarmy, they look out of touch, they look elitist, and even for the identities that they're seemingly defending, they look fake, right? this is this community has a shit ton of trans people in it. And if I were to ask my trans chatters, do you think the Democrats actually care about you? I think they would in unison say, oh, no. There was no transgender spokesperson at the DNC. Kamala Harris barely ever talked about trans issues. We all know that they don't give a shit. And now they're entertaining the notion of actually becoming transphobic as an outward message, assuming that is going to somehow win people back to the Democratic Party. No, if you are the left flank party in the current duopoly, if you're the left flank major party, you will never win. You will never be able to outflank the Republicans on bigotry. Okay, they own bigotry. That's the whole thing that they do. That is their space. Why the do you think you can convince people that you are actually more bigoted than they are? That's their whole shtick. Push for issues that you know you can win on. It's stupid. Same goes for anti-immigrant sentiment. Same goes for Kamala Harris saying she's going to have the most lethal military of all time. Okay, same goes for the Democrats being like, no, you don't understand. We love the police. We want to hug and kiss the police. We want to give them more weapons. We want to give them more tanks. It's dumb. Okay? That's why, what do I always say? Make the police do their jobs, okay? They're dog shit at their jobs. Make them do their jobs, okay? That's it. Actually be a presence for law and order and not lawlessness and disorder in black and brown communities that you operate in. Do your job, please.
Shot just blocks away from the White House, now deadly. President Trump announcing 20-year-old Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom has died of her injuries.
She's just passed away. She's no longer with us.
Beckstrom's father posting on Facebook, quote, "My baby girl has passed to glory." The president saying the other wounded West Virginia Guardsman, Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, is fighting for his life.
Their families' lives are all changed forever because one person decided to do this horrific and evil thing.
And this morning, chilling images obtained by the Wall Street Journal from an eyewitness showing the moments after those shots rang out. A frantic gun battle outside a metro station in the heart of the nation's capital. And new details now emerging about the lone suspect, 29-year-old Ramanullah Lakanwal, an Afghan national who officials say drove cross-country from his home in Washington state to carry out the targeted attack. Lakanwal immigrating to the U.S. in 2021 under a Biden-era program evacuating Afghan refugees during the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. forces. Sources tell ABC News he was formally granted asylum this April under the Trump administration. The president growing angry when asked why the suspect was granted asylum.
When it comes to asylum, when they're flown in, it's very hard to get them out. No matter how you want to do it, it's very hard to get them out. But we're going to be getting them all out now.
Sources familiar with the investigation say Lakanwal was a highly trained and trusted member of an elite Afghan counterterrorism force called the Zero Units, partnering with U.S. Special Forces and the CIA during the war in Afghanistan. The FBI now investigating the attack as a possible act of terrorism, executing search warrants at the suspect's home in Bellingham, Washington, where he lived with his wife and 5 children.
During that process, we seized numerous electronic devices to include cell phones, laptops, iPads, and other material that is being analyzed as we speak.
The suspect now facing several charges, including assault with intent to kill. D.C. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro saying he's now likely to face murder charges.
And President Trump has responded to this attack by ordering what he calls a re-examination of all Afghans who came to the U.S. after the withdrawal of American forces from that country. It's unclear how that would work logistically. Also, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services now announcing they are halting the processing of all immigration requests for all Afghans indefinitely. Rebecca.
All right, Jay, thank you.
President Trump says he's ready to expel anyone who is, quote, not a net asset to the United States. And he's also threatening to end immigration from what he describes as third world nations. Our Nancy Cordes is in West Palm Beach, Florida, and joins us now this morning. Nancy, what specifically is the president speaking about?
Good morning, Errol. This would be a dramatic new step by the president, cutting off migration from an unknown number of countries that he deems third world. We have asked the White House for more.
Yeah, we got to get more racist, I think. You see, just as the traffic density problem can be solved if we just built another lane. The American issue is we just haven't been racist enough, right? If only we were just a little bit more locked in on the racism, just one more level in the white supremacy spectrum, and we'll fix it. All of this, everything will be well. We just haven't tried. Real capitalism hasn't been tried yet. Real communism hasn't been tried yet. And also real racism hasn't been tried yet. That's just one more dial on the racism meter. I promise. Just a little bit more racism and all of the rent problem and all of the affordability problems will go away, dude. These are the same that go, the left is calling us Nazis to kill us, and they start saying and doing Nazi shit, lol. Yeah, I mean, the entire point of that is to stop dissent. And it's an abject failure because obviously in the United States of America, free speech is one of the only things that we have. So obviously, whenever you try to take that away, Americans are going to be like, no. No. They're going to say, get the hell out of here. Of course, I'm going to keep saying whatever the fuck I want to say. Because that is just a way, that is an ineffective way that the Republicans try to silence dissent. Okay? That's it. In any case, here's the long-ass effort post from this dipshit. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all our great citizens and patriots who have been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disruptive, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other... This is Stephen Miller. 100% Stephen Miller wrote this, okay? I can see from like the first couple of sentences, this is a Stephen Miller exclusive, okay? Because it is identical. It is identical to something you would hear from Goebbels or something you would hear from Hitler, you know? It's just straight up. Carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, and laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct, and this just plain stupid when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, in parentheses census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. Yeah, no, totally. That's what's going on here. You're so right. It is all the foreign nationals that are on welfare. Yeah, certainly not like the forgotten white people that are born and bred American that are on welfare. It's just the foreigners that are not doing anything for America except, you know, picking all the crops and playing a incredibly important role in all of our agricultural output that makes sure that Americans are well fed without taking a dime out of that welfare structure anyway. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. It's just so wrong. Yeah. Melania is part of them. Obviously, so is J.D. Vance's wife as well, by the way. Yeah. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will roughly get $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits, etc. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. It's ironic to also shift the focus over to Minnesota, where Minneapolis is unironically one of the few cities in the country that has actually improved the material conditions of the people that live in Minneapolis. But of course, there's a lot of Somali people there, right? So if you're racist dipshit from looking at it from afar, you go, oh, the demographics of Minneapolis are shifting. I hate that. Meanwhile, the people of Minneapolis are actually pretty happy. So happy that they hated the incumbent mayor and still ended up voting for the incumbent mayor, right? No, Kaya, no, Kaya, out, get out of there. Oh my God, get not there. Classic. She loves getting into this one cubby. She wants the mic cables so bad. Up to mischief. Anyway, Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. The seriously R-worded governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congressman woman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab and who probably came into the USA illegally, in that you are not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she's treated. This has 400,000 likes. I hate this shit, dude. This is, yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. Our president is Adolf Hitler. If Adolf Hitler was somehow even dumber than the original Adolf Hitler, awesome. Mostly bots. Breathe, brother. I know. It doesn't matter. It's just still. It doesn't matter that it's mostly bots. Okay. What matters is the president is saying this. It's just like sprinkle a little bit of racism, and in this instance, it's not even a little bit of racism. He's just maxing out on it. Like, this is one step removed from just saying the N-word. Okay, saying that like black people have overtaken, while also referencing black people as you know, the N-word. In this country, they have roving gangs of thugs coming from Africa. Jesus Christ, dude. It's literally one step removed. And for many Americans, I think they need to hear that to actually come to terms with how racist this statement is. Somali people are the same as anybody else, okay? They have the same exact class interests. They're not coming into the United States of America to look for prey. This is psychotic. Jesus Christ, dude. Why many word when they only wanted to say one? Yeah. They're literally saying they want him to be a fascist. I'm ready for President Trump to actually be a little more like the fascist dictator the Democrats lie about. Crush this invasion and color revolution with an iron fist, no mercy. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're saying, I mean, they've been saying this. These guys are, I don't know why we're acting as though they're like now coming to terms, right? The post gets worse. What? I meant the Trump one. It gets worse? Oh, Ilhan Omar. He continues on with Ilhan Omar, but hatefully complain about our country, constitution, and how badly she is treated when our place of origin is a decadent, backward, and crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for lack of government, military, police, schools, etc. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policies eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. What the f*** does this mean? These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through an unauthorized and illegal auto pen approval process. Only reverse migration can fully cure the situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those that hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything that America stands for. You won't be here for long. Yeah, this is a Stephen Miller rant, 100%. Donald Trump is not capable of crafting this many words together. And also, you can see the anger and resentment. Remigration is obviously a European fascist concept, by the way. Yeah, is a far-right concept originally from Europe of ethnic cleansing via the mass deportation. Remigration is it was utilized by the AfD in Germany, or is being utilized by the AfD in Germany. It just means like remigration is just deportation. It's just a European way of saying deportation. Oh. I think you're cooked. Me? Why? I'm an American citizen. You can suck my dick if you think I'm getting deported out of this country. Yeah. By the time, as I've said over and over again, by the time it gets to someone like myself being denaturalized, it's over for America has shifted so dramatically. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that that's not like a ambition from this administration. But if they're coming after like a rich Twitch streamer with a massive fan base who is an American citizen, born American, natural born U.S. citizen, that means they've gone over so many more vulnerable populations at this point. Because I'm not a naturalized citizen. I'm a natural born U.S. citizen. People aren't focused enough on the word denaturalized here. The president says he will revoke the citizenship of Americans who weren't born here if he and Stephen Miller decide they need to go. Denaturalization is a rare and legally difficult process that Miller and white nationalists like Nick Fuentes have been pushing to supercharge the process for years now. But as Trump makes clear by citing the number 53 million, which includes foreign-born citizens, any American who wasn't born here is now, at least in the eyes of the government, at risk of deportation. He's right. I don't think they're going to get away with this. I think they are far too unpopular. I'll just say it like this. I think they are far too unpopular to try to unleash an agenda like this. And no, you might get mad at me for saying this, but I do not believe that Americans are this racist, or at least enough Americans are this racist. Okay? Are there Americans that are this racist? Yes, absolutely. There are. But look to how quickly people snap back to reality when the mass deportation initiatives came to their neighborhoods. Okay? You have to do, what do I always say? Americans are too disorganized and too invested in their treats to actually be a part of a serious, disciplined fascist movement. Then you need to do reading to get to that level of racism. Okay? They're just like normal races for the most part. The average American might have values that resemble the neo-Nazi in another country, but they're not well-read enough to act out on those ambitions. They're not disciplined enough. They don't care enough. You do not have a mass, ideologically committed fascist movement in this country. This is basically trying to. This is a statement by Stephen Miller in the direction of a mass ideologically coherent and ideologically organized loyal movement that does not exist. Okay? If he had actually spent the first half of a year on fixing the underlying material inequities or something and offering some crumbs that would obviously harm the interests of capital, and then he moved in this direction, we would be in this would be a far greater concern. Okay? We're not there, and there is no loyalty beyond a cult-like cult-like level of support for Donald Trump from the base that is withering away. Okay? Yeah, Americans can still get a decent meal at Applebee's. They can enjoy the treats. We're not a country full of PTSD-riddled World War I soldiers who experience insane hyperinflation and are mad that like they're not getting their pensions or adequate medical care. Even though there are plenty of people who are, PTSD addled veterans that aren't getting that medical care. By and large, Americans are still, they're still outside of that equation. If you're a legal immigrant or the children of legal immigrants, they're coming for you too. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen. It doesn't matter if you were born here. No one is safe. This is the agenda of the far right. Yeah. The Department of Homeland Security also posted the stakes have never been higher and the goal has never been more clear. Remigration now. These guys are so stupid, dude. Even though morally ambiguous, America might be better off with some sort of serious expulsion mechanism. The fuck are you talking about, dude? One of the few redeeming qualities of the United States of America is the fact that immigrants have actually made this country the dominant power that it is, whether it be the brain drain or whether it be the rich tapestry of cultures. It's so stupid. We got like a couple things going for us, okay? Our diversity, our free speech, or at least the that still obviously has limitations, but like the free speech that kind of exists, okay, and due process. And Donald Trump is trying to tackle all three. It's so stupid, especially because there is no real problem here. Do you understand? Like, if there was, okay, I will say it like this. I will concede on this point. If there was a significant issue with migrants coming into the United States of America and actually doing harm, like killing people on the streets, preying on the vulnerable, trying to trying to create like roving gangs that are looking for white women to rape and behead or whatever the these psychopaths believe, then yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable. In that situation, if that racist fantasy was reality, then yeah, there is a lot more reason to unironically say, hey, we got to put these guys in jail. What the fuck are we doing? Or maybe even dispose of them or remove these people from the American national boundaries. This is a significant burden, okay? But that's not the case. That's not the case anywhere on the planet, okay? Because that's just not how humans are. Nobody migrates to the United States of America, so they're like, oh yeah, land of opportunity to do rapes. Are you insane? That's not how this works. No, when people say, oh, I'm going to the land of opportunity, they mean like, oh, this country has a far better material circumstances and presents a far better future for someone like myself, like Afghan Muslims. Watch the full video, pussy. Only supports Hamas, like Afghan Muslims. Oh my God. Right-wing lunatic chatter. Yeah. Right-wing lunatic chatter demanding that I watch the Context Nuke in its entirety. Name a better duo. New York Times got a State Department cable in which Rubio orders diplomats in Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand to press for immigration limits and cite crime. They're also told to report on governments that are pro-immigration. That is a description of settler colonial societies in which transplants are sent to terrorize indigenous populations. Isn't third world migration to the hegemonic metropole? Oh. Anyway, it's just so stupid. It's stupid because this doesn't actually solve any of the issues that people are facing, like the real issues, okay? It's just a made-up problem. And the more people refuse to solve the real problems, the more they lean into this made-up problem, okay? And here we are. I cannot believe it. I can't believe how psychotic this is. This is insane. The Trump administration is arresting the wives and husbands of U.S. citizens when they show up for their green card interviews, even though they entered legally and have no criminal record. So much for family values, says Nicholas Kristof, New York Times columnist, author. Elon is cheering this on, of course. You are absolutely right in response to Donald Trump. This is a literal life or death issue. They will kill us all. This is what the hogs got out of that post. Trump officially gave us the R word back. Nice, dude. Did you see that Pauline Hanson used a clip of you reacting to her shitty movie trailer for a post promoting it? What? I don't know who the fuck that is, and I don't care. Anyway, we're all systems go on the enshittification. It's just like everything that the American government has done that's like awful and bad and cruel, we're just leaning into, okay? Oh, the cruelty is what you want, right? People are like, no, we want affordability. We want affordability. And the administration goes, oh, you mean you want more cruelty, more senseless cruelty, more murder in Latin America and more cruelty to your neighbors. That's what you mean, right? And it's like, no, we want affordability. He's like, nah, actually, no, we want more cruelty. That's what you want. I'm going to give it to you. It doesn't matter what you want. More blood for the blood god. New Indiana Senate Republican Mike Bohacek, whose daughter has Down syndrome, says he's a no on redistricting, citing Trump's slur. Many of you asked my position on redistricting. I've been an unapologetic advocate for people with intellectual disabilities since the birth of my second daughter. Those of you that don't know me or my family might not know that my daughter has Down syndrome. This is not the first time our president has used these insulting and derogatory references, and his choices of words have consequences. I will be voting no on redistricting. Perhaps he can use the next 10 months to convince voters that his policies and behavior deserve a congressional majority. Wow, that's crazy. I don't think people realize what has happened. We are officially at war with Islam. Islam declared war on U.S. service members on U.S. soil. Secretary of War should respond by ordering military-style raids on every single mosque in America in a joint operation with the Department of Homeland Security to mass deport every single non-citizen Muslim in our country. We are at war with Islam. U.S. soldiers are being murdered on American soil by Muslims who are killing in the name of Islam. Americans should prepare accordingly. Buy ammo. This is just the beginning. And no, this isn't hyperbole. Over 72,000 Afghan immigrants were airdropped all over the U.S. in 2021. They are ticking time bombs waiting to explode. We must prepare to combat these enemy combatants who are likely planning more ambush-style attacks of jihad on service members and innocent Americans. Every devout Muslim is a foot soldier in Islam. The Trump administration should respond accordingly. This is where you get, by the way, this is where you get when you think Islamophobia is permissible. And Islamophobia is institutionally permissible. So, of course, the most rabid sociopaths are basically going to take it to this level, okay? Especially because this is a very pro-Israel sentiment. Every single moment that Americans are predisposed with this like radical Islam taking root in America is a moment where they don't give a shit that Israel is like killing Palestinians. The moment that they don't give a shit where Israel is taking all their tax dollars to go kill Palestinians. Meanwhile, this kind of sentiment replaced the word Muslim with Jew, and you get Adolf Hitler, right? See, this is why 90% of the people won't hear about the facts you covered yesterday. I don't think so. What a lunatic Laura Loomer is. Jesus Christ. This is exactly this is hysterical. This is psychotic. She is an absolute psychopath. 19K likes is terrifying? No, this is just Elon's Twitter, dude. I mean, Donald Trump's racist screeds got 400,000 likes if you want to talk about the likes. Anyway. Oh. Yeah, this is the most terrifying racialized screed I've read in a while. And I'm sure dipshits will say, based. This is based. He's going to save America, based. And many of their stupid neck-bearded supporters will also go along with it. Meanwhile, yeah, holy based. Meanwhile, the actual material harm that they're experiencing is not being solved because of their inability to realize that Trump is actually doing this as a distraction for them. Okay? Everyone's a dumbass. Anyone that eats this goddamn bait is an absolute moron. I don't know. This is so psychotic. Yeah, meanwhile, Donald Trump is now facing the lowest approval rating of his second term, 36%, lower than Joe Biden at his lowest, and his response has been to unleash some of the most openly racist, nativistic rhetoric of his presidency, blaming immigrants for nearly every problem in American life. In a Thanksgiving Truth Social post, Trump claimed most of the 53 million immigrants are on welfare and the refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. He claimed Somalis are taking over Minnesota and declared a pause to migration from all third world countries while vowing to denaturalize green card holders who aren't sufficiently loyal. In a segment on CNN, Tia Mitchell of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution said the White House sees this as the only thing he has to counteract all these concerns people are raising about why his approval levels are so low. They're worried about the cost of goods, safety, housing, healthcare, and he's not addressing that directly. She said people's healthcare issues aren't being resolved with the crackdowns at the southern border and the anti-immigration policies. Where have you heard that statement before? I've been saying that.
This is very much in line with the way that the president and people in his administration, people like Stephen Miller, have been talking about immigration. President Trump, in his remarks on Wednesday night, brought up Somalia. That is not an accident. That is something that the president has been focused on recently and that he is emphasizing. You look at refugee policies where the White House wants to bring in white people from South Africa who they say are being persecuted. They don't want to bring in other refugees. The refugee program has been severely restricted under the Trump administration already. So in a lot of ways, this is a terrible event that has given them a sort of a peg to do a lot of the things that they were already doing or wanted to do. And it does come at a time when the president's approval ratings are in a really bad place, including on immigration. But this is a realm of immigration where he has had more traction than some of the other areas.
And speaking of the refugee issue, this is what he said in a couple of late night posts last night. Right before midnight, he put out these posts here on Thanksgiving night. He said, this refugee burden is the leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages, and large deficits. He's very clear where he's going with this.
Well, I like the way that Tamara put it. It is something they want to do. It's a long-term project. This administration, with the 4 years it has been given by voters, wants to transform the immigration system. One, so there's a larger deportation force, so that immigration courts are seen as deportation courts, as they call them. They're doing more hiring right now to make that happen. They're trying to build the capacity for mass deportation because it wasn't there in the first term. You've covered this. So many things that they're doing right now are taking the lessons of the first term, where they were stymied by a court or stopped by a court, going to a more favorable court this time. A point with we saw this with the Muslim ban. It was a 5-4 decision that upheld the president. That's a 6-3 conservative court now. So they like their odds, but there is a long-term strategy here. But what are the political risks of it? For Trump, he's not on the ballot again. For Republicans, we already saw them lose ground with Asian American and Arab American voters in Virginia and New Jersey. Just huge shifts back away from the Republican Party. This is not the Republican agenda that won Dearborn, let's say, in the last election. This is more like what he wanted to do in the first place. And voters don't get a veto on this. It's going to be fought out in the courts. In Congress, look, final point I'll make is why was it easier for some Afghans to get here if they cooperate with the Americans in the war? Was bipartisan vote of Congress that made the Apple Allies Act. Mike Johnson voted for that. I don't think you're going to have any Republicans saying that was a good idea. Now the Stephen Millers of the party, who already were controlling the narrative, are going to control the politics too.
Very few Republicans voted against that.
Yeah,
in
I
fact,
think 16.
Yeah, something like that. So, part of this post, there were just a number of things that are eyebrow-raising, to say the very least. This is what he said refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. He said that there are Somalian gangs looking for prey. As he said, people are staying locked in their apartments. He called the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, quote, seriously retarded. He went on to call Ilhan Omar the worst congressman/woman. He ridiculed her for wearing a hijab, and she said that question about whether she's in the country illegally.
Yeah, a lot of that is problematic.
It's racist.
I was just going to say it's rooted racist in racism and xenophobia.
Yeah.
A little bit of misogyny possibly in there, or sexism in there as well. And I think that there are people in the White House who believe that the best message that Donald Trump has right now is his anti-immigration message, that's really the only thing that he has to counteract all the concerns people are raising about why voters why his approval levels are so low. They're worried about the cost of goods. They're worried about safety. Yes, they're worried about the cost of.
Did Trump just alt? Yes, he did. He alted for sure. He's blowing his load over full tilt fascism.
Housing. They're worried about health care. And he's not addressing much of that directly, but what he is doing is saying indirectly, the immigrants in the U.S. are causing or contributing to all those problems. I don't know if that's going to work with the American people, because they've seen the immigration crackdowns, but they also have seen that grocery prices aren't going down as a result. Their health care issues aren't being resolved, even with the crackdowns at the southern border. So yes, he can do more on immigration, but I don't know if that's going to address what American voters really expect him to be working on.
Or trust me, somehow it will work because Americans are very racist. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of racist Americans, but I don't think most Americans are that racist. Okay? America is far too diverse for Americans broadly to be that racist. And you didn't trust me when I told you the immigration stuff was going to backfire. So trust me on this. Okay? If Americans were that racist and this was the most important part of his agenda, then they would have been perfectly fine with Donald Trump implementing his anti-immigrant agenda. Why did Donald Trump Why did Donald Trump experience record low disapprovals by this point in his term? Why is Donald Trump seen as morally repugnant? Why is Donald Trump's attitude? Why is Donald Trump's policies on immigration being negatively received? Why is Donald Trump's policies on immigration now being negatively received by the population? It's because Americans conceptualize legislation, but when that legislation is implemented, especially on the right, and they start experiencing the impact and the outcome of said legislation, they immediately go, no, this is not what I was talking about. I didn't realize this is what it was going to look like. And I told you this before the election. I told you that eventually, once the Gestapo start kidnapping people, that Americans were very quickly going to turn around and say, yeah, we didn't like this at all, actually. Now, we can have a conversation on whether or not that's too late, too little, too late, sure. But ultimately, that means that Americans are not actually on board with this level of mass deportation at all. They don't like seeing the wives and husbands of American citizens get kidnapped at their green card meetings, okay? At their green card at their green card appointments. Who the wants that? Because that's what mass deportation looks like. Do you understand? If Americans were really horny for this level of violence towards random migrants, then Donald Trump's then Donald Trump would still be killing it on the immigration front. He would still have overwhelming numbers on the immigration front because he's been following through on that, right? So one must ask the question, why, especially in places where ICE is doing raids? When ICE comes into your neighborhood, your attitude changes dramatically. You might have been a Trump voter, for example, and you start seeing people like the barback at the restaurant that you go to get arrested and apprehended for no reason. You see military raids at the Home Depot that you frequent against people that you've contracted out for help in the past, landscapers, gardeners, things of that nature. And you go, who is this for? I don't want this. You did. You voted for it. Now you're experiencing the impact and you don't like it. Don't say they like it. It's not true. There are plenty of people who don't like it. Okay? Plenty of people who thought they like it actually see it happen and go, oh, I don't like it. It's no different than that one Republican congressperson who was like, I love Donald Trump, but then he said the R word and my second daughter has Down syndrome and it turns out I actually don't like Trump now. Do you not understand? And Trump's disapproval proves that, okay? The discontent proves that people don't like it. The mass mobilization proves that people don't like it. The No Kings rallies is another clear-cut example that people don't like it. They're mobilizing. They're taking it to the streets. Americans are deeply selfish people. They're taking time out of their days to go out and protest, okay? That means they don't like it. And you cannot continue this agenda without mass approval. You cannot continue this agenda with mass disapproval, especially when that disapproval will only grow. If Donald Trump was killing it and he had no concerns about his base recognizing that he's not doing shit on affordability, he wouldn't bring Zohran Mamdani into the White House and sit by his side and act all chummy and even defend him against contentious questions in the by the press pool, right? He wouldn't have to do that. He'd just be like, that's a Muslim communist. We have to denaturalize him immediately. Because what Trump is saying only a week after that Zohran Mamdani meeting is that Zohran Mamdani should be deported. So which is it? I said roads are unpaved, schools underfunded, utility bills are costly. Half your paycheck subsidizes your landlord's lifestyle. You have no real job prospects. Your health insurance premiums are insanely high. Immigrants are not the reason for this. Trump and his rich buddies are. And that's just the truth, and I will continue saying it. And I think there is an unprecedented opportunity to make Americans recognize that now. Because the guy that they voted for is not delivering on this. Approval ratings mean nothing to these people. I don't even know why it's discussed on the news. It means nothing to maybe the MAGA cult, but it means something to us. It means that people are experiencing disapproval. And specifically on the issue of immigration. Okay? That's what's very consequential here, because if Americans were broadly in support of Donald Trump's attitudes on immigration, okay, 90% of Democrats disapprove of Trump on immigration. 66% of independents disapprove on Trump's attitudes on immigration. 81% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump's policies on immigration. But you cannot continue your agenda with just the Republicans. Okay? You can't. That's why his overall disapproval on immigration, which was his most successful policy, was mass deportation, ran on mass deportation, is sitting at 57% disapproval right now. That's it. Raffle, this guy is R-worded as hell yeah, brother. You're right. I'm definitely the one experiencing an issue with his mental faculties, and not the president, and not the dumb that supports this president. Jesus Christ. I said Raffle. What year is this? I mean, that's the most like sweaty 45-year-old loser you've ever seen. Anyway, this is textbook war crime extrajudicial killing. Hexeth order on first Caribbean boat strike. Officials say killed them all. 2 survivors were clinging on to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander overseeing the September 2nd attack ordered a second strike to comply with Hexeth's instructions. It's unfathomable that the USG lawyers were signed up on a no survivors boat strike, no get out of jail free card. There's a clear precedent dating back to World War II trial of the Germans for that very act, which lawyers know very well, the Pelleas World War II war crimes trial. Who is going to stop America? That's the question. And when there is no one that's willing to even entertain the notion that America is responsible for a metric ton of war crimes, they just get away with doing this shit. Even Americans and Nazis pulled each other out of the sea. What the are we doing? Yeah, well, America is slowly but surely moving in the direction of a super Nazi style of governance, it seems. Hasan Reaction is one of the best ones in the React channel.